So the first thing that we're going to do now that we have our little colours started, I say colours, but now that we have our different tones, we're going to start with one of them. Make sure you have enough water in your brush. And we're just going to get started right in, okay? So we're just going to add colour on there to the first lemon. That seems quite dark, but as I said, you will always go darker. So we're just going to go nice round. When you're doing any kind of still life, I would recommend that you have it a little bit further away from you. And just for the purposes of the video, I wanted you to be able to see the angle that I'm at here. So we're going to do the one across here as slightly darker. The reason I'm using just a little board for this, if you have a palette, your paints will stay a little wetter. But just don't be afraid to just keep mixing and mix off cuff. And sometimes when we do too much of that, you can lose the, you have the color, you have the shade here and you think, I want that again. And it's difficult to replicate. So if you feel like you want to use that again, bring it in over the side, because what you'll find here is you'll just experiment and you'll add texture in different ways. The other thing is if you were doing this like with the charcoal or with pencil, inevitably you would use different strokes of the pencil or make little shading marks or make little hatching, which is like lines all joined up. But whenever you're doing painting, you're very much relying on your brush. So don't be afraid to add in thick pieces of paint. If you're along for the full journey, you will see that in the full curriculum, we talk about, we use our palette knife, which is one of the ways I love to paint. So we do a little mini oil painting, a starter oil painting with that. And also I really encourage you to load your brush up at times. Even in the watercolor series as well that we do, we still have that lovely, the solidness of watercolor, but also when it becomes really opaque. But anyway, so we're making this a slightly darker shade. Okay. So at the back, it is much darker. So I'm going to do that. That comes out here. And then we're going to make it a little bit lighter. And I'm just mixing and mixing all the time, mixing. We're going to make that a little bit lighter here. And over here, there's a little bit. And then at the side, it's quite light here. But right in the middle again, we have that dark. So we're going to bring the dark here. Same with the rind of this lemon as well. It's a very nice light shade here. So we'll try and get that. I think what I'll do now is just get our dark colors down. So it's much darker around here. Darker than even over this side. So I'm going to try. And remember to mix your color, your shade, so that it's very solid. Okay. There we go. And then over here, we can carry that over. I send you about not losing it. Carry that over a little bit. You can see there's a little bit here coming through too. And down under here. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush. And I use my slightly smaller brush now. And I actually need more black paint. Okay, so you can see how that starts to take its form, okay? I love whenever this happens because it looks so like just thrown together at this stage. But what you'll see now is you've already set the tones. Actually, so what you'll see now is we've set the tones, but what we're going to do is just add in where our very dark shading is, okay? So that we've got that nailed down. So I've just taken quite a lot of water in my brush, a good bit of the black, and I've taken it into that darkest of my greys. And that's going to be for underneath where the real shadow is. Okay, and the same over here. And remember, shadows and shading, it's not solid. I always talk about whenever we're doing like sunsets, or you're doing sunset into the sea. So if you're doing that, it's nearly like you've sandwiched it over, you've mirrored it. But whenever you are doing any kind of shading and a shadow, the shadow is not going to be as dark. It's going to be very dark here, but it's not going to be as dark a little bit further out, okay? Like the sun, whenever the rays are there, it's a solid, strong one, but it faints, okay? So keep that in mind. And so we are going to take this out, and then I'm going to just finish under there. And I'm going to use a little bit of this dark as well, just to add in where the, is it the pip? What do you know? It's not the pip. Can't remember what that's called. And I'm going to use a little bit of this shading as well, just to outline here. And add in there. Because the more, that's why I say, just keep looking at it. Look for the light, look for the dark. The more you look at it, the more you will see. So I'm just using that to really overlay. And underneath here. Okay. So I'm going to lighten up a little bit now. And I'm going to try and fill in. I'm going to lighten up now, and I'm going to fill in where the segments are in the middle. And again, because this is a nice quick video, a quick look at a study of tonal value, I want you to just play with your flathead brush, okay? Apply the paint on and try to navigate it as best you can, because it's going to want to go one direction. But I want you to try and just like add it on and pull it down. And then these bits at the bottom are slightly lighter, so add it on, pull it round. And then we'll add in a little bit more. And the way that the segments work is there's lots of different textures in there. So just use little parts of your brush. Look, you can see it really come together now. And keep looking at it, keep looking down, and you can see all the different shades coming through. Now, I'm going to change my brush to my lighter one, to my smaller brush, just so we can fill in around the top where it's really light here. We're going to go for our very lightest grey, as light as we can get at this stage. You'll find that you'll still manage to go lighter. Okay. And acrylic will dry quite quickly. This is even on the canvas board. So you'll be able to go back over and revisit. People often ask about the dark or the light first. I like to get the dark colours down just because that really sets the tone. But equally, remember we started with a light there too. The light colour will still dry enough to get another layer on top of that. Don't worry about that too much. You want it to be dry enough so there's not too much of an interruption. Okay. And then in around here. And it's the nice thing about lemons or grapefruits, even at most fruit really, there's quite a lot the structure in an apple, but even whenever you cut into it and the little pips are there, or with watermelon, you know, it's a wee bit chaotic inside, and I like that too. So just enjoy the chaos of that. I'm taking a lot of white here. I'm going to go in to the middle. I'm going to bring some of that lightness over as well and just really add it in here, which is where the light is hitting here. Remember to keep water on your brush. So by now you really are starting to use, where did our samples go? they've fallen down. You know, look at this. What a cool way to start and how to bring it all out together, okay? It's looking so good. Just going to bring this light in here. And same with underneath. The light kind of goes under there a little bit and up at the top. And then we're going to go for slightly darker again. So just keep playing with it. Okay. Because there's even your little dimples there as well. And in and around where there we go. As I'd said at the start, you do not want it to be flat. When you look at a piece of fruit or shadows or a human form standing in front of the sun, they're not flat. There's always angles and everything. So look at how we can really just add this. So we want to work on this part, okay? I'm just going to add in a little bit of dark around here so this doesn't feel just as stark. A little bit lighter. Okay, and we're going to go dark again. So what we're doing now is we're filling in where the dark bits are in the segment. So now that we have the slightly smaller brush, we can interrupt those. So you can keep paint on your brush and you can really just dab it in around, okay? So that it becomes that kind of, that chaos again, okay? But keep the shape of the segments if you can. Okay. And then right in the very center there's a real hole. So I'm going to go a little bit darker again for it, just to imply that it is there and that there's an entry point to that. That's where the pip was. There we go. That's a real dark there. And I'm going to take that really dark again over to here. Okay. I'm going to put it up here as well, that real dark depth. Okay, and then what I'm doing is I'm picking out some of those segments which are just the whole area of it is slightly darker, so that it doesn't feel like we still need to keep light and shade in that, even though this is very different. There is a section here is lighter than this section and this section, so I'm going to try and work on that for now. I'm just going to go right over this area here, so that it starts to feel like there's light and shade even in these juicy areas here too. Okay, and I'm going to go for a really light color again, a light grey. Look at my board now. Okay, by this stage you should really have a lot of paint going on here. So sit back, have a look, see what we're at. Okay, now I'm going to bring some of this in over here. So this is looking quite good. But we're also going to add in a little bit of a grey tone out here. So we're going to go back to our big thick brush. Oh, it looks so good. Lovely. Right. Okay. So we're going to do a little bit of pulling this out, pulling this colour out, the shading, so that it feels a little softer in parts. And remember, the point of entry, the point here, where the two meet is your darkest bit, okay? So make sure you get that right. I'm really back into the dark, not solid black, but very, very close to it. If you use your solid black, it must be the last thing you use. The same with the white, it must be the last thing you use, so that you get that real dark effect. Over here, we're going to go a little bit darker. Okay. So lastly, just to keep it so this feels like there's a little bit more light and shade in it, in this area here, we're just going to add a few little dark areas. I can see that it's lighter up at the top of mine than it is at the bottom. So I'm just going to fill this in. Okay. And then up here. And then what I'm going to do is really clean my brush so that before we finish, look at that. You can see that now. We need to add in our light here, and we need to add in just a really solid black at the end, now that we're pretty much at the end. I'm still going to err on the side of caution. I will still go for a good bit of white with a tiny bit of one of the greys in it. I just think it's easier on the eye. It's gentler whenever there's less harsh tones there. Okay, so we're going to go here. And then there's a little bit of shine from the, and I'm actually already making that thicker as well, the paint there. Same with over here. We have that real clear sections in the top here. And then there's little bursts of it. Okay. Okay, and just lastly, we're going to take then our very dark black. I'm keeping the white on there because I'm just going to build it up. Black can just be so harsh. You just have to really be careful with that. And I know this is only our simple one, but isn't that lovely to see? Look at our lemons. Beautiful. And by now, you will have seen how there really is light and shade. It's not just as simple as dark and black and white, okay? I'm so happy to get you through this because this will help you in every colour that you do. And I'm just going to show you the palettes that I used in the last video as well, just to show you how, even when I paint like this behind, I use tonal value. I use tonal value in everything. This is the orange palette for the painting behind. This is the blue palette, the greeny palette for the painting behind. This is the purple and red palette. This is the lights. And this is those nice mossy greens we talked about. It is so important to add depth and to make your overall piece so much more beautiful and not less flat. So we're on our very last stage of the dark. And what we're doing is we're just adding in those very last little sections that make it nice and strong. Keep water on your brush. We really are in the very dark, dark, dark now. Okay. And even if all you do is hint that very black colour, you'll see how it immediately does add so much depth It is a very strong, dominant tone, even whenever you're doing it like this. So we're right on the black here now. We're just underlining those. And then the same over here. Now, there's always work to do because you could keep going, but this is our first study, and what I want to do to finish that is just to add in a nice light wash around it, just so it doesn't feel so harsh in the middle of the page. So what we're going to do is I'm just taking whatever kind of mugginess is on my brush. That way it means that there's a language between these different tones. They're there, and it's not just me taking a brand new wash. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add in a little bit of context, really, okay? So this is kind of your medium color of grey, just so that we get a little bit of an idea. It's on a board right now, so we're going to just do this in and around it. Okay, same way. It's not going to be a flat color either, okay? So I'm just going to So in the same way, that's not really going to be a flat color either, okay? So we're adding in our dark areas a bit as well. We're bringing that shadow a little bit out, so they're a little less harsh. And then we're adding in our nice lights in here as well. So by now we're on the very light, very, very light. Just going round our subject matter. Okay, and then we're going to just tighten that up a little bit because I managed to change it. So what that does is you'll need to find where your dark is again, which it is right here. So we want to get our form back in. That's very dark at the back. There we go. There we go. So we are just going to add, this is nice and light here. There we go. Going to add a little bit of dark. See, once you sit on this, you can keep going and keep going and keep going. And I could actually really, we could use a small brush to get in there as well. But this is where we're going to stop. Here we go. Right. So, got our nice solid blacks under there. Under there. Pull that out a little bit. Just so it's a little softer. There we go. Now, and it goes right the way out here as well. So there we go. There's our lemons. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I am so pleased to teach you all about tonal value. It is a really important lesson for you to learn. It is so important that you learn about the light and the dark, but also just about how you can really add texture by using light and dark, and how whenever you're mixing any color, when you're doing any palette or any painting, it's really important that you understand all about tonal value. So thank you for watching. If you're staying along, then all you need to do is just jump into the curriculum. You can sign up on a monthly basis, or you can buy it outright, and I think we give you a good discount when you do it that way. But you can come along. I will teach you. We have one-to-one tutorials. We have a members group, and it would be great to have you along, because I am Ali Hart and I'm so passionate about art. It's even in my name. But I've learned so much over the years myself in teaching, and I love being able to teach you, and I love to see my students progress, and for you to really just, in this world when everything's digital, everything's instant, everything is instant gratification. Whereas with this, with learning your art and learning your practice, you have got to work at it and give yourself the time. And I am here to help you use that time wisely and to be the best that you can be. So look at our beautiful still life using tonal value, learning all about it, and really just using our very basic tones. Thanks for watching.